We have got Zoe coming up. Oh, there we go. I was like, where is someone moving? She's going to come along and tell us about how you broke the most deployment tools. My popular deployment. Oh, okay, great. The most popular one, not even just any other one. We're really excited to hear how this went down. So another round of applause to bring on Zoe today.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me here. It's exciting to be here, even though, talks make me really anxious and feel funny. Um, but I think it's good to do anyway. My name is Zoe. I usually go by Zolo. I'm a lead systems engineer at REA Group. If you don't know REA Group, we do realestate.com.au, flatmates.com, that kind of thing. We do real estate. And I've been at REA a few years. So today I'm not going to be talking to you really about too much technical stuff, a little bit, but I'm kind of talking about the other side of being an engineer, and that to me is, the existential dread when things go wrong. And I'm going to talk to you about the first time, the first time I made a big mistake, I suppose, and I broke the most popular deployment tool at REA. So doing that through the use of, let me see how I go, through the use of pop figurines. So this is me here. So I'll just take you back a little bit. So this is me from a few years ago. This was well before I was a lead. I was in a different squad and I had my own lead at the time. And his name is Lutz, and he had this great idea. We were in a squad called Cloud Foundations. We worked on lots of AWS things. And he had this great idea to have a AWS nuke party where on a Friday afternoon at 2 p.m., my whole squad would all come into a room and we would basically kill as much as we could, as much useless stuff as we could to save as much money as possible. We're using this thing called Trusted Advisor. If you're not familiar with it, it's in one of, AWS's plethora of services. And this one gives you handy hints on what you can destroy, what you can downsize to save money across your AWS accounts. So he kind of relays this information to us. And I don't know, maybe it was because it was like a Friday arvo. We just come back from like a couple of work drinks. We were kind of slugging along. And so hopefully, yeah. So I had this great idea to pick the energy back up, that we should make this nuke party where we were deleting a bunch of Amazon services a competition. And the team loved it, actually, to be fair. The team was absolutely frothing it. We're a very competitive squad. We split up into two teams. I think this is Team Money and Team Cash. And we started, we got a whiteboard up. We were like cheering every time someone had like their little win where they would save X amount of dollars. We were tallying it all up. And after a little bit, we stopped using Trusted Advisor because we were just trying to find things that we could delete and we could save a bunch of money so that we could win. And Team Money was pulling ahead because they discovered this awesome idea where they could just like delete a bunch of old AMIs. And we have so many AMIs at REA across all of our accounts that yes, nearly. Yes. In just one sec, I've got a slide for it. That would be a that was a really great way to, I guess, save costs. So you might be asking, what's an AMI? Good question. So, and perhaps a little important to this story. So an AMI I've got here, it's sort of like a snapshot. It stands for Amazon Machine Image. It's what we use to boot up applications. So on virtual machines. So if you don't have those and it's trying to boot your application off of it, it's not gonna work. The instance isn't gonna start up correctly. So, once Team Money started deleting AMIs, Team Cash decided that we were going to do the same. And perhaps it could have happened to anyone. Perhaps anyone in Team Cash could have done it. But I was the one to click the button. I did check with my lead at the time, and I asked, if if this was a good idea. I showed him all of the AMIs. He had a look. He's like, yeah, looks good to me. But ultimately, I clicked the button. And then, yeah, I mean, it was a huge success. We saved a whole bunch of money. And it was such a massive, resounding success to go into our weekend that I posted on it on our like company-wide Slack channel. And to our credit, like we did save 40 grand US a year. Team Cash didn't even win with this, by the way, with this maneuver. Team Money still won. So, but we came close, and I was feeling pretty pleased with myself, ready to go into my weekend. And I remember on Saturday morning, I was with my husband at my favorite bagel place, which isn't important to the story. It's just, sad because they've closed down. But I was drinking an Aperol Spritz. It was like 10 in the morning, maybe 11. And I got this horrible gut-wrenching text that said, hey, this doesn't have anything to do with us, does it? And like my whole heart just dropped. And I go and have a look in Slack, and right under the message that I put celebrating our win was this message here. I'll read it to you. It looks like this AMI is no longer available in the in this AWS account. We have a system which is failing to scale up because it can't access that AMI. It's using Shipper version 3. Shit. You can see actually at the time, I didn't say anything. I reacted with the shaking eyes emoji and then just had the biggest panic of my life. Like or at least of my life within the realm of my career. And I had this horrible moment. This is where I, was experiencing some of the worst imposter syndrome that I've ever experienced. I genuinely believed that I was going to get fired or severely reprimanded. I thought I was like an idiot engineer and that I should never have been touching AWS in the first place. So I'll take a pause on that, on how I was feeling though. Let's talk about what happened. So Grant, sorry, I won't push on that. Grant mentioned Shipper. So just for your context, Shipper is an internal tool that we use at REA. It's how we ship our workloads onto ECS and EC2. It's an abstraction layer for our virtual machines effectively, or for ECS and EC2 specifically. So what I had done is I had deleted every Shipper AMI that was version 3 or prior. So our current version our current major version that we had rolled out was version 4. Every other AMI was dead and gone. And any new deployments that we're using Shipper version 3 or prior were now going to fail. That was because of a couple of reasons. In case you were curious, like we had some scaling down things on our instances for Shipper because people don't tend to deploy on weekends. So it was pretty inopportune doing that on a Friday afternoon. So I was feeling pretty sick. I I was dreading coming back to work on Monday. It was basically all I was thinking about all weekend. And I hadn't done anything about it. I just kind of sat there in my dread that, I was the worst engineer on the planet. And when I got to work on Monday, it was amazing to see, but it kind of made it even worse because so much had been done by the time I got to work on Monday at 9 a.m. First of all, a bunker channel had been created, which is how we deal with incidents. Okay. We had a plan in place that we were executing across all of our systems engineers. That was done by my lead. And it was confirmed that everything prior to shipper version 4 is gone. Now, there were ways of recovering it, but we decided to go down the route of upgrading everyone to shipper 4. And I am still, well, because of this, because I didn't even do anything about it over the weekend, I'm now experiencing the worst imposter syndrome ever. I'm like, well, I've caused this problem and I didn't even help to fix it. But Lutz was amazing. He paired off people and assigned them tasks, and I was paired with Pat. I'm kind of rushing through this one, but if you can take away anything from this talk, I would like you to take away the absolutely profound impact that Pat had on me that day when I was not functioning. And I get sad about it every time. I get anxious because it was a hard day for me. So I paired with him and he asked me how my weekend was and I burst into tears. And I told him I was the worst engineer ever. I told him everything that I'd done. I was like, I can't believe I could be so stupid to delete all of these AMIs. I've caused this whole problem. There's like 20 engineers all banding together right now and it's all because of me. And Pat did the most helpful thing that I think he could have done in that situation. First of all, he drove the pairing session, which was helpful. But secondly, as we were going through doing the tasks that we were given, he talked to me about every single time he's broken something in production. And I know Pat's a great engineer, and so that made me feel a lot lighter. So, I think having that conversation with him was really, really helpful for me. And I'm using one of REA's values, own it. Making mistakes is okay. And once I was open about it and about the fact that I am fallible, I felt better. I don't feel that was the time, even though, I was working through my own emotions as well. I don't think that was the time to freak out about what I could have done better differently next time. That's why we have post-incident reviews, right? So that was a good reflection for me. I've got 2 other points about working through problems being really valuable for my understanding, which is really true. But I think the most important thing was that once I was really open about the fact that I'd made this mistake, there was a lot of camaraderie around, I guess, the idea of breaking prod, and there's a lot of group understanding, and that was really valuable for me to work through, I guess, my ideas of what makes a good engineer. Ultimately, we fixed the problem, and I noticed after a little bit a change in the language about what this what this problem meant. A few weeks after, when we first started talking about this, there was a lot of frustration about messing up deployment for our customers, being the developer. A few weeks afterwards, I saw this switch where the head of space of systems engineers started talking about the huge win that we upgraded every system in REA to the latest major version of Shipper. So what was the most horrifying time in my career ended up being a massive win. And I don't know, very ironic for me, but anyway. So that was great. Take takeaways. If I could have you take away a few things. I know it's a cliche. Please don't mess with prod on a Friday. I don't know why we thought that that would be a good idea. You know, that a lot of the problems that we had were because it was on a weekend as well, including like the scaling down and not being able to like replicate AMIs because of that. But most importantly, I think, are the last two. Find a pat and be a pat. So, and by being a pat, to me, that looks like being vulnerable and sharing that you're fallible and showing that understanding to other engineers around you that that is the case. I try to do that with these talks. They make me really anxious, but I think it's important. And I think it's the part of being an engineer that is hard. It's hard because I think ultimately, I don't know if everyone feels this way, but ultimately for me, I never treat myself the way that I would treat one of my teammates. And I consistently need to remind myself that I should. And I'd like to kind of relay that onto you as well. So thanks for listening to my little story. I think that's it. Yep. You can have me on LinkedIn if you want to.
Slido, there's one supportive comment from our friend Anonymous that says, don't worry, I once took down the core network for the Royal Air Force by killing a rack of switches. Smiley, laugh cry. I think this happens to everyone at some point. So there we go.
I think so.
The root cause is never a person. And then another question from Gav, which was, what was learned or noted in the PIR? Anything you can share? Apart from don't mess with pot on a Friday.
Yeah, I think there are a plethora of things, like the way that we handled, like we realized that we needed more protection on AMIs as well. I guess like one of the parts of a post-incident review for us is that even though I'm saying that I made this huge mistake, if something could be done with human error, then there's something else to fix. You know, human error is not the reason. I don't know what the phrase is.
The root cause is not a person.
Yes. Yeah. So we reevaluated some of our access for to AMIs so that we don't have I guess a similar problem, and that was the biggest change that we had. Yep.
Cool. Did they still eat the stuff on the AWS like you did?
Sorry?
Did they still eat the stuff on the AWS like?
Do they still let me use AWS? Oh, I do. Yeah, I understand. I do. I mean, systems engineers, we're still working through how you handle, I guess, least privilege access, and it's like this is a long problem. But I have slightly less access than I did before this.
Sounds optimal. If anybody wants to ask questions going forward, there is the code. I'm standing here because the microphone's somewhere around, and I don't need to be in the front. I'm going to slink over here. That is all the questions that we have. Thank you so much. Thank you.